face the clerk. What do you like?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Lauren Miller.
And where do you currently live?
Downtown Nashville.
And are you working or are you in school?
I'm working.
And in the summer of 2013, where were you living and what were you doing?
I was living at the Village at Vanderbilt on Vanderbilt's campus, and I was interning at a music company.
And were you also enrolled in school at the time?
I was.
And who was your roommate at the time? How long had you known?
I'd known her for a couple of years, and we were roommates at the time, and we'd been rooming together for a few months.
And did you also participate in any other activities with her?
Yeah, we were both on Vanderbilt dance team.
I want to direct your attention specifically to Saturday, June 22nd, 2013. Do you remember that night?
I do.
And what, if anything, do you remember doing that evening?
That evening we had some friends come over to our apartment, and later on that night we went out to Tin Roof.
I think there might be a little bit of feedback from the mic, so I know it's hard to judge distance between them. Before you went to the Tin Roof, what, if anything, was going on at the apartment?
We had some mixed drinks and we're just mingling with our friends.
And that night in particular, were you planning on being out with Miss
I had to work early in the morning, and I also had a friend who was in town visiting me from my hometown in Seattle. And so we were just going to go out for a little bit, say hi to some friends, and then come back to our apartment.
And do you remember specifically when you went to the Tin Roof, what, if anything, did you do when you first arrived there?
So when we first got there, we went back and took some pictures, and then we saw some of our friends and other people.
Who all was there with you and Miss Lackey? Grabbed your friend from Seattle. Was there anybody else in your group?
Yeah, we had my friend Madison Jensen, Katie White. I believe there were a few other people, but I can't remember specifically who all was there. I think it was 4 to 6 of us.
And did everybody start out at your apartment, or did you meet some people once you got to the Tin Roof?
We met some people once we were at Tin Roof.
Which actually, could you explain what is the Tin Roof?
Tin Roof is a bar on Demumbrian Street.
Okay. And is that somewhere that's frequented by Vanderbilt students?
Yes.
And I'm going to ask that this witness be handed 2 images. Ms. Miller, can you take a look at those images and let me know if you recognize them?
I do.
And can you just generally describe what those pictures are of?
One of them is a picture of me and then another is us with our friend Madison Jensen just smiling as well.
And when were those photographs taken?
They were taken that night at the Tin Roof.
Your Honor, I would ask that those 2 photographs be made the next numbered exhibit.
All right, number 46.
They will be A and B, and I also ask permission to publish them.
All right.
Ms. Miller, can you describe what is shown in this first image?
Me and smiling.
And are you on the right side of this picture and Miss Lackey on the left?
Yes.
And is that how she appeared that evening when you went to the tin roof?
Yes.
And do you remember approximately what time y'all went there?
I don't. I want to guesstimate around midnight, but I'm not exactly sure.
And the second image, can you describe what is shown in this image?
Yeah, I'm on my left of the picture. Madison is in the middle. Sure.
And did you and your group of friends actually take several pictures that night?
Yes.
And all of you, this is how you appeared that night of late June 22nd, early June 23rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you describe up to the tin roof and the time that you spent with her?
When we first got there, it was just a normal night. She was just her normal, happy self, nothing unusual.
And at any point, did you see Mr. Vandenburg?
Yeah, when we first got to Tin Roof, Brandon was, I want to say by the entrance of the bar.
And did you know him very well, or how did you know him?
I had seen him around campus, but I didn't personally know him very well at all, only in passing.
And could you describe his demeanor when you saw him?
Yeah, when we saw him, he just seemed very... Elizabeth was there and immediately went up to her and handed her a drink.
How long did you stay at the tin roof?
Not very long at all, probably under 5 or 10 minutes, to be honest. I just went in, took pictures, and then I headed over to Midtown and then home.
Okay. And what did you do when you got home?
So I had my friend Molly who was in town visiting me, and so we just stayed up visiting because we hadn't seen each other in a very long time.
And were y'all drinking any alcohol, or what were you doing?
No, we had had a couple of drinks before we went to Tin Roof, but then after that we had stopped drinking, so we just were sitting up talking.
When was the next time that you saw your roommate?
I saw her the next morning. I'm not exactly sure of the time frame, but I want to say early afternoon.
And when you saw her, could you describe what you saw, how did she look, and just describe that kind of moment of seeing her again?
Yeah, so when I first saw her, I was initially shocked at her appearance. She seemed to be very disheveled, and there were a few things that stood out to me that were a little bit strange. The first thing I noticed was her hair was very matted. It appeared as if it had gotten wet and then been dried again, which was confusing to us because we didn't know how it had gotten wet. There was puke crusted in her hair. There was also vomit crusted on her shirt. Her shirt felt very stiff, similar to her hair, as if it had gotten wet and then been dried, which was also strange. And then we also noticed that she had a gash on her knee and several bruises on her legs as well.
And what, if anything, did you do based on seeing her in that state?
What do you mean?
Well, when you saw her, you said she had some bruises. I mean, were you inspecting her to see what else was wrong with her?
Yes, we just...
Okay, rephrase.
Could you describe what you did?
Yeah, so upon seeing her, we just were kind of going through touching her hair, touching her shirt, just looking at the bruises on her body and wondering what had happened, why she looked so strange, that sort of thing.
Which I'm going to ask that you be handed a photograph. If you could take a look at that photograph and let me know if you recognize it.
I do.
And what is that a photograph of?
It's a photograph, and there's some bruises on it and some red markings as well.
Judge, Your Honor, she needs to use, she can't testify.
Well, I don't know who took it. Just lay a foundation.
Yes, Your Honor.
What it appears to be.
Ms. Miller, do you know who took that photo?
I took the photo.
And when did you take it?
When did I take it? I took it a couple days after, or a day after that she had come home and she had looked strange.
And could you describe kind of why did you do that?
Yeah, so we were just in the kitchen kind of talking about everything, and I was just noticing that she had a ton of bruises on the back of her legs that I didn't initially see because she was wearing shorts at this time, and she was complaining of some pain, and so I was like, well, I'll take a look and let you know if there's anything weird. And then when I saw the bruises, I took a photo so that I could show her what I was seeing.
And Your Honor, I would ask that that photograph be entered as the next numbered exhibit.
All right, number 47.
Thank you. And I would also request permission to publish that to the jury.
All right.
Is that the photograph that you just got?
Yes.
Miss Miller, that night when you were up visiting with your friend from Seattle, how late do you remember that y'all stayed up?
I remember staying up until about 3 a.m.
And at any point, did anybody come to your house, try to knock on the door, try to get in, anything like that?
No.
And was there anything else that you later learned or discovered that was significant to the situation that happened with your roommate?
I don't believe so.
When she showed up the next day, you've described her clothing, her hair. Was there anything else about her appearance?
She just was very, very ill. She was sick and kept getting progressively sicker throughout the rest of the day. And then when she entered our house, she also found one of her shoes on the lawn outside of our apartment. And that was a little strange too. We thought, what happened to your other shoe?
And do you know if she ever found the other shoe?
She did.
Do you remember whether or not she had either of them with her when she came home?
I don't. I just know we found the one on the lawn.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank
All
you.
right, cross-examination.
Hi, Ms. Miller.
Hi.
Do you remember giving an interview, I believe with Detective Mayo and Detective Sheree regarding this matter on July the 1st of 2013?
I do.
You do? Okay. Okay, I want to talk about the beginning of you all's night on June the 22nd, okay? And you stated that you all had went to the tin roof
Yes, ma'am.
from your house? Mm-hmm. Okay. And did you all pregame at your house before going to the tin roof?
We did.
Okay. And had you... Okay. And do you remember what she had to drink?
I remember that we were drinking gin, but we were each making our own drinks, so I can't really say exactly what she was drinking.
Okay. Okay, and then you all got to the tin roof, and you stated that you didn't stay for very long. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And that you went to sleep about 3 a.m. Is that also correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the next day you woke up at 6 a.m.?
Yeah, I said goodbye to my friend who was driving out to Franklin for work.
And was that the
Shoe on the lawn, but I wasn't aware that it was her shoe until she came home later and found it and told me that it was her shoe. But I did see a shoe at that point.
Okay. And at that time you called her to make sure that she was okay when you saw the shoe?
I did not, because I didn't know whose shoe it was.
Okay. She still wasn't home at that time, right, at 6 a.m.?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And when did you find...
Remember the exact time. I believe it was between 11:30 and 12:30.
And you still had not heard from her between 6 and 11:30 when you saw her again?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you still hadn't contacted her during that time?
No.
Okay. And next, I just want to talk to you about her hair. I'm going to show you a video, and I would like for you to tell me if you recognize anybody in the video, okay?
Okay.
I'm sorry, surveillance. Oh. Okay. And do you recognize any of those individuals on that surveillance video?
Yes. I left.
Okay. And is that how you saw her the next morning?
Approximately.
Okay. Is that how her hair looked when you saw her the next morning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You say yes or no?
Oh, yes.
What time is it on that video?
11:50.
Okay. So you saw her, would you say approximately about 10 to 15 minutes after that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you?
Yes, we are.
Are you still best friends as you were in June of 2013?
We aren't as close as we once were.
Okay. And the next, what did you all do next?
She got home, we talked about her appearance, then we changed clothes and we went to get some brunch at Pancake Pantry.
Okay. And did you all end up eating at Pancake Pantry?
We did.
Okay. And you stated that she came home and changed clothes. Do you know whether she took a shower or not?
I don't recall her taking a shower.
Okay. And Ms. Miller, do you know Cory Batey at all?
No.
Okay. And when you saw she came home the following day, you never inquired as to whether her hair smelled funny or anything, did you?
I don't remember smelling her hair, I just remember touching it.
Okay. And do you know if it smelled like urine or not when you saw her?
I didn't smell her hair, so I can't say.
Okay. Okay, I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused. Next witness.
Charlie Casabuono, Your Honor, please.
That is an expert in what field?
DNA analysis, Your Honor, please.
All right. Will you stipulate that each person is an expert in DNA analysis?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Well, please, I think we'll need for this witness also Exhibit 6, number 7, number 12, number 15, number 21.
Okay, you probably have to say those again because
Okay.
you're going a little fast.
Okay. Number 6,
6, 7,
15,
21 through 24.
yes.
Mr. Clerk, raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
State your name for the court, please.
My name is Charlie, C-H-A-R-L-Y, Castelbuono, Castelbuono.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation
And how long have you worked there?
for about 4.5 years.
Okay, and what is your official title there?
I'm a special agent forensic scientist in the forensic biology unit.
Could you just tell the jury basically what a forensic scientist is?
A forensic scientist is someone that uses scientific techniques to examine physical evidence that's related.
Turn the mic a little bit towards you because you have to get fairly close to it for it to pick up properly.
A forensic scientist is someone who uses scientific techniques to examine physical evidence that's related to a criminal investigation.
And what's your specific assignment now at the crime lab?
I work in the forensic biology unit.
And what's your educational background for basic being a forensic scientist?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Berry College. I also have a Master of Science in Forensic Science from the University of Central Florida.
Okay. And once you took your job 4.5 years ago, have you had other specific training in DNA analysis?
Yes, I had about a year of training at the TBI in body fluid identification as well as DNA analysis. I first observed a qualified analyst performing casework and then performed those examinations myself under their supervision. At the end of my training, I received a mock case and a mock trial, and I had to pass that in order to start performing casework independently. I also went through a basic forensic crime scene processing school during that time. Additionally, we have to have at least 8 hours of continuing education every year. And I'm also certified in forensic molecular biology by the American Board of Criminalistics.
Okay. And how many times you actually testify as an expert in criminal cases?
11 times.
Okay. I know everybody knows a little bit about DNA. Could you just give us a very brief description of what DNA actually is?
DNA is our genetic material. You inherit half of it from your mother and the other half from your father. It controls many biological processes within the body. It also determines physical characteristics such as eye color and hair color.
Okay. Does anyone have the same DNA?
Except for identical twins, no, it's unique.
Okay. And is DNA used in other fields other than forensic testing?
It is. It's used in paternity testing, it's used in research and medical applications.
And when you receive evidence or an item for testing, how do you go about extracting the DNA or finding DNA on that particular item?
I'll first examine that item, either looking for blood, semen, or saliva. I can also sometimes swab an item just to pick up skin cells and get DNA that way. Then I will isolate or purify the DNA from that sample, determine how much is there. Then I'll make millions of copies of that DNA so that I have enough for analysis, and then a DNA profile will be generated from that.
Okay. And once you have a DNA profile, how's a comparison made?
So once I get a DNA profile from an evidence sample, I can then compare that profile to DNA from known individuals to see if I can make a match.
Okay. And when you talk about a match, now let's get a little complicated now. How do DNA statistics work as far as you determining whether there's a match or it's a person's DNA?
So anytime we make an inclusion or say that a DNA profile matches someone, we have to give weight to that match. So in other words, we're determining how rare or common that DNA profile may be.
Okay. And you apply statistical analysis that you've developed through the TBI?
That would be the statistics would give you that number of how rare that profile is.
Okay. Does everyone enter a room leave their DNA there?
They may leave DNA, but it may not be a sufficient amount for testing.
Okay. And even if you're able to find some DNA, is it always sufficient for testing?
No, there may not be enough DNA, or the DNA may be damaged, which can affect my ability to obtain a DNA profile.
Okay. And how long can DNA actually last on an item?
Depending on what condition the item is in, what storage conditions, it can last for years.
Okay. I have a couple of cases where we tested with 30 years. Do you know of any longer than that?
Probably around that time, especially blood stains, semen stains, DNA can survive for a long time.
Can't survive if you wash an item?
It can.
Okay. Is there any way for you, when you get an item, you determine there's some DNA on it, is there any way for you to determine how long that DNA has actually been present?
No, there's not.
Yeah. And what is touch DNA? You hear that term from time to time. What is that?
So touch DNA is when you handle an item, you're constantly shedding skin cells, and so when you handle an item, you can leave some of those skin cells behind on that item. So then we can try to swab it to pick up those skin cells and then get the DNA from that sample.
Okay. But when you're actually testing items, you don't swab every item entirely, do you, for touch DNA?
No, it would have to be, specific items that were handled hopefully by one person or a small number of people.
Okay. Example might be if you have a murder weapon, you might swab that for some touch DNA, is that right?
Yes, that would be a good example.
Okay. And can DNA be transferred from one item to another?
Yes, it can.
And if a crime scene is not processed for several days after the crime, is that a problem for you as a forensic examiner?
Yes, it can be. Things can be removed from the scene, or things can be added to the scene that weren't present when the crime occurred.
Okay. And what about if certain items of evidence are mixed together prior to testing?
That could potentially result in transfer of DNA among those items.
Okay. So if you had the opportunity, you might tell a certain detective he shouldn't put all the clothes in one bag. Is that fair to say?
Typically, it's good to have them packaged separately. When one person was wearing, say, a shirt and pants, sometimes those items will be packaged together if that person was wearing them at the same time.
Okay. I would ask, Your Honor, please, if we could hand her now exhibit number 6. Did you receive certain items from testing, in this particular case, from Detective Jason Mayo?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can you identify that specific item there?
Yes, this is a sexual assault kit that I received that was collected from Elizabeth Lackey.
Okay. Can you just tell us a little bit about what's in a sexual assault kit? Are they fairly standard that law enforcement uses in all cases?
Yes, typically they will contain swabs. So various swabs can be taken from the body, whether they're vaginal swabs, oral swabs, anal swabs, and they can also contain underwear sometimes.
Okay. And did you actually test those swabs?
Yes, I did. This item has our unique laboratory number that would have been given to it when it came to the lab, as well as the exhibit numbers, which are contained, and my initials and my seal are also present on this item.
If you could hand her exhibit number 7, please. Can you identify that item, please?
Yes, this would be my exhibit numbers 2A, 2B, and 2C, which was a top, a skirt, and 2 pairs. And again, this has our unique laboratory number as well as the exhibit numbers and my initials.
Thank you. Number 12.
This is my exhibit number 16A. Again, it has the laboratory number, the exhibit number, and my initials as well as my seal. This was a bra.
Number 15.
So So here I have Exhibit 12A, which were buccal swabs from Vandenburg.
That's your exhibit.
My Exhibit 12A, yes. Again, the laboratory number is present with the exhibit number and my initials. This one is my Exhibit 14A, buccal swabs from Jaborian McKenzie. Again, the laboratory number is present with the exhibit number and my initials. This one is my Exhibit 11A, buccal swabs from Brandon Banks. The laboratory number is present, as well as the exhibit number and my initials. This one is my Exhibit 13A, buccal swabs from Cory Batey. The laboratory number is present, as well as the exhibit number and my initials. This is Exhibit 15A, which are buccal swabs from Mac Prelu, with the laboratory number, the exhibit number, and my initials. This is my Exhibit 19A, which were buccal swabs from Michael Retta, again with the lab number, the exhibit number, and my initials. This is my exhibit number 20A, buccal swabs from Dylan Vanderwall, with the laboratory number, the exhibit number, and my initials. This is my exhibit 18A, buccal swabs from Christopher Boyd, with the laboratory number, exhibit number, and my initials. And this one is my exhibit 17A, buccal swabs from DeAndre Woods, again with the laboratory number, the exhibit number, and my initials.
Okay. And did you develop known DNA samples from each of those swabs?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and is that what you used to compare to any evidence that you found on other items?
Yes.
Okay. And number 21, please.
This is my exhibit 6A, a white towel from the hook on the wall. The laboratory number is present and the exhibit number with my initials.
Okay, number 22.
This is my exhibit 5A, which was a green towel from hook on wall. And the laboratory number is present with the exhibit number and my initials.
24.
This is my exhibit 3A, which was a green towel from near the front door,
Okay.
with the laboratory number, my exhibit number, and my initials.
That would be number 23, then number 24.
That was number 23, the last green towel.
This is my exhibit 4A, which is a red and white towel from near the front door. And again, it has a laboratory number, the exhibit number, and my initials.
Now, if I won't confuse you, I'd like to go by our exhibit numbers and you tell us what you found, please. Number 6 would be the MLE kit. Can you find that in your report, please?
Yes.
Number 6.
Number 6, the
Right kit.
kit.
So for the exhibit number, my exhibit 1A, which were the buccal, a complete DNA profile was obtained for comparison. For the vaginal swabs, examination confirmed the presence of a limited amount of spermatozoa. For the non-sperm fraction, no DNA profile. For the sperm fraction, the DNA profile obtained is consistent with a mixture of at least 2 individuals. The major contributor is consistent. Minor contributor is consistent with Exhibit 12A, Brandon Vandenburg, at 3 locations. The remaining locations were inconclusive due to insufficient and/or degraded DNA. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual with the same DNA profile is approximately 1 in 11,750 for the African American population, 1 in 3,660 for the Caucasian population, and 1 in 13,830 for the Southwestern Hispanic population. Exhibit numbers 11A, Brandon Banks, 13A, Cory Batey, and 14A, Jabori McKenzie can be excluded as contributors.
Okay. You say there was a small amount of spermatozoa in that particular case?
Yes, there was.
Okay, let's go on to the clothes of the victim, please. Be number 7, exhibit number 7.
So for the top, presumptive test did not indicate the presence of semen. For the skirt, presumptive test did not indicate the presence of semen. For the underwear, which there were 2 pairs, for both the purple pair and the black pair, examination confirmed the presence of a limited amount of spermatozoa. For both pairs of underwear, for the non-sperm and sperm fractions, no DNA profile.
Okay, could you explain a little bit about that? You said you did find sperm on one of the pair paintings?
I did find sperm on both pairs, a limited amount.
Okay. And what did you observe as far as the sperm you saw there?
So when I examine a piece of evidence for sperm, I'll take a small cutting and then make a microscope slide to actually search for sperm cells. And so for each of these pairs of underwear, I only observed 1 sperm cell.
1 sperm cell?
Yes.
And how much, in a normal ejaculation by an average male, how many sperm cells are ejaculated in a normal ejaculation?
On average, there are 200 to 500 million sperm cells per ejaculate.
Okay. And you saw 1?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you requested that 1 be sent out for further testing, is that correct?
I did recommend additional testing.
Okay. And by finding 1 sperm cell, what would that indicate to you as an expert?
It's possible that there may at some time have been a semen stain, but it had been washed at least once. It's also possible that it could have gotten there by transfer from some other surface.
Okay. And if the clothes hadn't been washed, you would assume that would be a transfer?
Objective legal, Your Honor.
All right, rephrase.
I think she's an expert, Your Honor, please. But anyway, so you're saying you would think it had been washed, so if it had been a semen stain there, it would have been diffused by washing. Is that correct?
Jeff, Your Honor, she just asked and answered.
You can ask hypothetically, and she can give her opinion.
Well, I think you gave your opinion, but the fact that you saw 1 sperm cell, that indicated you what?
That that's not consistent with a actual semen stain being present.
Okay. And that was insufficient for you to test, is that right?
Correct. I only obtained female DNA profiles.
Okay, let's go on now to Number 12, the bra. Our
Presumptive tests did not indicate the presence of semen. This item was swabbed for DNA testing. The DNA profile obtained is consistent with a mixture of at least 3 individuals. The major contributor matched Exhibit 1A. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual having the same DNA profile from the African American, Caucasian, or Southwestern Hispanic populations exceeds the current world population. The limited minor contributor profile is from at least 1 male individual. Further interpretation was inconclusive due to insufficient and/or degraded DNA.
Okay. Let's move on then to number 21, which was a white towel.
For the white towel, presumptive test did not indicate the presence of semen.
Okay. What about number 22, the green towel?
The green towel from the front door or from the hook?
It's a white, okay, number 22. I'm not sure which one. There's 2 green towels, so let's see. Just talk about both green towels in 22 and 23.
Okay, so the green towel that was from the near the front door. Examination confirmed the presence of spermatozoa in 2 areas with a limited amount in stain number 2. For stain number 1, for the non-sperm and sperm fractions, the DNA profile matched Exhibit 12A, Brandon Vandenburg. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual having the same DNA profile from the African American, Caucasian, or Southwestern Hispanic populations exceeds the current world population. For stain number 2, the non-sperm fraction, the DNA profile obtained is consistent with a mixture of at least 2 individuals. The major contributor matched Exhibit 12A, Brandon Vandenburg. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual having the same DNA profile from the African American, Caucasian, or Southwestern Hispanic populations exceeds the current world population. Due to the limited minor contributor profile obtained, further interpretation was inconclusive. And for the sperm fraction, a limited DNA profile was obtained. Further interpretation was inconclusive due to insufficient and/or degraded DNA.
Okay, for the record, I think number 22 was the green towel on the hook.
So her testimony was green towel.
23 then.
Right, 23 is the green towel near the door.
So then for the green towel from the hook,
That was her 003A, I believe. Is that?
yes,
Okay. Which is green towel from near front door.
yes. So then this one will be my Exhibit 5A, the green towel from the hook on the wall. Examination confirmed the presence of spermatozoa in 2 areas. For stain number 1, in the non-sperm fraction, the DNA profile obtained is consistent with a mixture of at least 2 individuals. The major contributor is an unknown male individual, unknown male number 1. Due to the limited value of the minor contributor profile obtained, results regarding the inclusion of Exhibit 12A, Brandon Vandenburg, are inconclusive. Exhibit 13A, Cory Batey, and 14A, Jabori McKenzie, can be excluded as contributors. For the sperm fraction, the DNA profile obtained is from unknown male number 1. Therefore, Brandon Banks, Brandon Vandenburg, Cory Batey, and Jabori McKenzie can be excluded as the source of this profile. For stain number 2, in the non-sperm and sperm fractions, the DNA profile matched Exhibit 12A, Brandon Vandenburg. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual having the same DNA profile from the African American, Caucasian, or Southwestern Hispanic populations exceeds the current world population.
Did you later identify unknown male number 1?
Yes, I did.
And who was that?
That was Mac Prelu.
Okay. So that was on the green towel, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think you also received some bedding and a mattress cover, is that correct?
Yes.
Didn't bring that huge sack in here, but what were your findings there?
For my Exhibit 10A, which was a brown fitted sheet from the lower bed, examination confirmed the presence of spermatozoa. For the non-sperm fraction, the DNA profile obtained is consistent with a mixture of Exhibit 1A. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual who would be included as a contributor to this DNA mixture profile is approximately 1 in 1.6 billion for the African American population, 1 in 27.5 million for the Caucasian population, and 1 in 69.2 million for the Southwestern Hispanic population. And one location was inconclusive due to insufficient and or degraded DNA. Exhibit numbers 11A, Brandon Banks, 13A, Cory Batey, and 14A, Jabori McKenzie can be excluded as contributors. For the sperm fraction, the DNA profile matched Exhibit 12A, Brandon Vandenburg. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual having the same DNA profile from the African American, Caucasian, or Southwestern Hispanic populations exceeds the current world population. For my Exhibit 10B, which was a white mattress cover from the lower bed, examination confirmed the presence of spermatozoa in 3 areas. For all 3 stains, and the non-sperm and sperm fractions, the DNA profile is from an unknown male individual, unknown male number 2. Therefore, exhibit numbers 1A, 12A, Brandon Vandenburg, 13A, Cory Batey, and 14A, Jabori McKenzie can be excluded as contributors.
That was a mattress cover?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And my Exhibit 10C was a pillowcase from the lower bed, and 10D were 2 pillow covers from the lower bed, and presumptive tests did not indicate the presence of semen for either of those.
So basically you got no conclusive results for Mr. Batey, Mr. Banks, or Mr. McKenzie, is that correct?
For which exhibit?
For any, you didn't get any conclusive results indicating Mr. Batey, Mr. Banks, or Mr. McKenzie's DNA was
That is correct.
Okay. If a person is wearing a condom when penetrating a victim, would you expect to find sperm in that situation?
Probably not.
And what about if a rape kit is done some 90 hours after the incident? Would that affect your findings at all?
Yes, typically sperm can survive in the vagina for about 3 days or 72 hours, and less time than that in the oral or anal cavities.
Okay. Also, if a person taking showers, would that affect your ability to find evidence?
Yes, the activity of the individual can affect whether or not semen may be present.
Okay. Please, that's all my questions. I would ask, you do have a report, copy of your report with you, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
I would ask 48, I think. 48. Exhibit number 48.
Cross-examination.
Actually, I have 2 reports. This was my second report. Yes.
Would it be appropriate to call you Agent Castle Bono?
Yes.
Okay, because I want to say it correctly. Need 1 second here, please. You're a forensic scientist, right?
Correct.
And at this time, you've been doing this type of forensic work for 6 years?
It was about 4.5.
4.5, okay. And you were asked to do DNA testing in this particular case,
Yes.
and that was at the request of the Metro Police Department.
Correct.
I want to ask you, the sperm fraction that was found in the underwear, that was sent off for additional testing, to your knowledge?
It was.
Okay, and that was sent to Cellmark, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and they're in Dallas, right?
Yes.
And that was for what is called YSTR testing.
Correct.
And this is testing of male individuals only, right?
Yes, it tests DNA on the Y chromosome, which only males have.
And the sperm fraction that you found in the underwear was placed in a bag with another pair of underwear, right?
It was.
Okay. And I believe you had that on the stand, and you identified the specific exhibit, and the contents were 2 pair of female. And you were asked about transfer. Would it be, it would be your preference as a forensic specialist to have those 2 items packaged in separate packages, right?
That is preferable.
Okay. And you would expect a detective of 4 or 5 years to know the difference, to know what transfer is, wouldn't you?
I would expect so.
Okay. And have you ever told detectives from Metro to put 2 items of possible evidence into the same bag?
Relevance, Your Honor, please.
It's really not, but she can go ahead and answer.
Okay. Or have you ever encouraged or suggested to anyone in the sex crimes unit at Metro to put 2 items in one bag?
Personally, no, I've not.
Okay. The best practice to preserve the evidence is to place each item in a separate bag, right?
I would agree with that.
Okay. If I can call your attention to your report again, I believe there were obviously a number of items that you tested, including, I believe, let me ask you, you were able to identify DNA for Banks, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Batey, and Mr. Vandenburg?
For, you mean the standards?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Develop their DNA profile.
Correct.
Okay. As well as Mr. Retta, Mr. Vanderwall, Mr. Prelue, and Mr. Boyd.
Correct.
And your exhibit 001B was the vaginal pool swabs, correct?
There were vaginal pool swabs and then just vaginal swabs.
Okay. And the vaginal pool swabs did not indicate the presence of any semen, right?
That's correct.
And the vaginal swabs indicated the presence of DNA for non-sperm and sperm fractions, right?
Yes.
Okay. We know what sperm is, but a non-sperm fracture would be some other type of DNA, right?
Correct. So it's any type of cells that might be in the sample that are not sperm cells, so like skin cells.
Okay. And as for the non-sperm fraction DNA, nothing was found in the vaginal pool swab or the vaginal swab.
That's correct.
And with regard to the sperm fraction on the vaginal swab, Mr. Banks, Mr. Batey, and Mr. McKenzie were excluded.
That's correct.
Okay, and when you say excluded, that means it's not them.
Correct.
But you did find a match for Mr. Brandon Vandenburg.
Correct.
And I believe you also had a swab, a label, and there was no indication of semen present.
That's correct.
And you also had several other swabs from the sexual assault kit, correct?
Yes.
From different places with. On all of those, there was no indication of the presence of semen in any of those swabs, correct?
Yes.
And your item 002A was it not?
Yes, it was.
And there was no indication of the presence of semen on her top, correct?
That's correct.
And 002B was her skirt, is that right?
Yes.
And that would be the black skirt?
Yes.
And your test indicated no presence of semen on that either?
Correct.
And your 002C was, is that right?
Yes.
Both pairs, correct?
Yes.
And I believe it was a purple pair and a black pair?
Yes.
And as you testified earlier, there was the presence of a limited amount of spermatozoa?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what you tested, the non-sperm fraction was just DNA, and the single sperm head you found, you recommended YSTR analysis?
Yes.
And that's what we spoke about earlier, that was sent off to another lab.
Correct.
Now, the green towel near the door, 003A, you found the presence of spermatozoa in 2 areas, right?
Yes.
All right. And you identify those as stain 1 and stain 2, don't you?
Yes.
And on stain 1, the non-sperm fraction came back and matched Brandon Vandenburg.
Yes.
But Mr. Batey, Mr. Banks, and Mr.
That's correct.
was stain 1 on the green towel near the door, right?
Yes.
All right, stain 2, the non-sperm fraction, no DNA, you couldn't identify who the DNA belonged to, correct? On the non-sperm fraction?
For the non-sperm fraction, it matched Brandon Vandenburg.
Oh, I see that. Okay, so that did match Brandon Vandenburg.
Yes.
And then you were unable to, because of the limited minor contributor, everything else was inconclusive.
Correct.
All right. But we didn't find Mr. Batey's DNA on stain number 2 for the non-sperm fracture, right?
No.
And with regard to the sperm fracture, interpretation was inconclusive due to insufficient or degraded DNA, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, 004, the red and white towel. There was no indication of the presence of semen there.
Correct.
And on 005A, the green towel on the wall, I believe you found the presence of sperm in 2 areas, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And you identified that as stain 1 and stain 2. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay, I'm sorry. And on stain 1, let me just say on stain 1, that came back, I believe, to Mr. McPrelude, the non-sperm fraction?
Yes.
But Mr. Batey, Mr. Banks, and Mr. McKenzie were excluded as contributors, as well as Ms. Lackey.
I believe it was inconclusive for Mr. Vandenburg, but the rest were excluded.
Okay. And on the sperm fraction, it came from an unknown male, but Mr. Batey, Mr. McKenzie, and Mr. Banks were excluded as contributors, right?
Right, so that would have been McPrelude, but yes.
Okay. And on stain 2, the non-sperm fraction, it matched Mr. Vandenburg on the green towel on the wall, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Banks, Mr. Batey, and Mr. McKenzie, right?
Yes.
Now, I believe on your item 006A, which was the white towel on the hook, there was no presence of semen.
Correct.
And on 007A, the swabs from the floor in the front of the closet at 1900 South Drive, room 213, showed no indication of the presence of semen, right?
That's correct.
And would that be obtained by just taking a buccal swab, Q-tip, and running it across the floor?
I imagine so, yes.
Okay. And 008A, crusty material from the tub on the floor beside the closet. Now, from that, there was no presence of semen found, correct?
Correct.
But I believe a partial there, and I believe also with regard to that, the crusty material, the vomit, Mr. Batey was excluded as the source of this profile?
Yes.
Okay. As well as Mr. McKenzie, is that right?
Yes.
Now, 009 was the comforter on the lower bunk from room 213, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And your test did not indicate the presence of semen on the comforter?
That's correct.
And 010A was the brown fitted sheet, is that right?
Yes.
And with regard to the brown fitted sheet, the test indicated the presence of human DNA for non-sperm and sperm fractions.
Yes.
With regard to the non-sperm fraction, the DNA profile was consistent with Elizabeth Lack. Again, the brown fitted sheet. But you also were able to exclude on the non-sperm fraction Mr. Banks, Mr. Batey, and Mr. McKenzie.
That is correct.
And on the sperm fraction on the brown fitted sheet, it matched Mr. Vandenburg, did it not?
Yes, it did.
But you were able to exclude Mr. Batey and Mr. McKenzie and Mr. Banks.
Yes.
Now, 10B for you was the white mattress cover, was it not?
Yes.
And I believe upon examination there was the presence of sperm in 3 areas.
That's correct.
And with regard to the all three stains, the non-sperm fractions came from an unknown individual, is that right?
Yes.
Were you able to identify unknown male number 2?
I was not.
But you were able to exclude Brandon Banks, Cory Batey, and Jaborian McKenzie
Yes,
for all 3 stains on the white mattress cover, correct?
that's correct.
Now, 10C was a pillowcase from the lower bed in room 213, was it not?
Yes, it was.
And your test did not indicate the presence of semen on that pillowcase, correct?
That's correct.
And your 10D pillow covers from the lower bed in room 213?
Yes,
There's no indication of the presence of semen there, correct?
that's correct.
And what number was the bra? It is, I found it. I'm sorry. Now, the next 16A was, your 16A was and the presumptive test did not indicate the presence of semen, is correct?
Yes,
But it was swabbed for DNA testing, and it did indicate the presence of human DNA.
yes,
And Ms. Slack, DNA profile from her bra. And it was you could not make any other findings with regard to the DNA for any other individual, correct?
that's correct.
Now, I believe you also did a toxicology report for...
She didn't do any toxicology report.
Oh,
Did you or did you not?
I did not.
She did not. I had this in there with that was somebody else, Your Honor. So, Ms. Casalbono, of all the tests that you've run, Mr. Banks, Mr. McKenzie, and Mr. Batey were excluded, correct?
Either excluded or inconclusive, yes.
Okay. You found you found no sperm from them, those 3, correct?
That's correct.
No skin cells from those 3,
That's correct.
and you were not asked to test for hairs, were you?
No, I was not.
Okay. You don't do that anyway,
No, we don't.
but that is something that could be tested, could it not?
It could be sent off to another lab for testing.
But to your knowledge, that was not done, was it?
To my knowledge, no.
Did you test any of the items we've discussed for urine?
We don't have a test for urine at the TBI.
Okay, but there is a test for urine, is there not?
There are some that exist, yes.
Yes. But to your knowledge, no items were sent off to test for the presence of urine?
I'm not aware if they were tested for urine.
And when you were examining these individual items, you would take them out of the bag, I assume wear gloves when you would touch them, correct?
Yes.
Good.
Hey, Ms. Ross, I'm going to have to stop you. We're going to have to take a break. Someone needs to take a break.
Yes, Your Honor.
I wanted to try to wait until you finish, but we need to go ahead and take a break.
All rise.